Hey guys, here's Kale. Welcome to Guitar Painting 101. This is episode 1. In today's topic, we will discuss setting up the airline and compressor system. The first question for beginners is, what do I need for painting? Yes, I'm talking about people who want to use spray guns. You can start with rattle cans or wipe-on finishes, but that's not the focus of today's video. When I first started using spray gun for finishing, I had a lot of confusion. Even though I did a lot of research at the time, I still made some mistakes. Wrong equipment, wrong setup, and other issues. I end up wasting a lot of time and money, and I don't want you to make the same mistakes I did. That's why I decided to make this video as the first episode of my Guitar Painting 101 series. I will show you the proper airline system setup, specifically for guitar painting. I decided to split this episode into 2 parts. This is part 1, where I will go over everything you need for your airline system. First, let me clarify one thing. The main goal of airline system setup is to provide enough and clean air for our spray guns. Let's start with a list of everything you will need, and we will go through each item one by one. Let's start at air compressor. A very common question from beginners is, what air compressor should I buy? Yeah, there are a lot of different types like single stage, 2-stage, oil floated, oil free, and so on. But I don't want to talk too much to explain different types today. Actually, there are not a big difference for our work. What you need to concern is enough airflow, aka the CFM. We need a compressor to provide enough air to carry our air tools. For painting, definitely is spray gun. A common rule of thumb for compressor airflow is that it should be 1.5 times the CFM requirement of your spray gun. For example, if your spray gun requires 6 CFM, your compressor should provide at least 9 CFM. If you don't have enough airflow for your spray guns, you may notice there's a pressure drop, which can affect automation and lead to poor paint application. However, when it comes to guitar painting, you can usually get away with a smaller compressor. This is because we typically work in a short time when spraying guitars, not like a full car painting or some guitar factory setting. The air storage in tank can provide enough air to feed our guns for a while before the compressor motor kicks in. Even after the compressor motor kicks in, you still have some time with a consistent pressure. Besides, we have some tricks to make a small compressor work, like pausing for 1 or 2 seconds after each pass. But in the end, it all depends on how much airflow your spray gun requires. If there's a big gap between the CFM needed and the CFM your compressor can provide, that's definitely not ideal. Different spray guns require different amounts of airflow. For example, some miniguns only need about 3.5 or 4 CFM, and you can run them with a small pancake compressor. However, for a full-size spray gun, you may need more than 10 CFM, and some guns may require over 12 or even 15 CFM. Older technology guns might need even more. And if you want to use some air tools also, like an air sander, you may need more than 17 CFM. So the rule of compressor is always the bigger the better. But definitely we all have limited budget and limited space. So my choice is around 10 CFM, 20 to 30 gallons tank. Basically it's a 3000 watts compressor. The tank size is also the bigger the better. Basically you need double the CFM number for the tank size, at least. For example, 10 CFM needs 20 gallons for minimum. A bigger tank means you have more air storage. It gives you more time to get a consistent pressure to carry a high CFM needed gun, which your compressor can feed by motors only. So by this size, you can use almost all mini and compact guns, just quite enough for guitar painting. Also, it can feed up some high CFM guns in limited working time. If you consider further, like you want to use air sander, you can get a bigger one, like 20 CFM. Here you can finish your sanding in minutes. A smaller compressor limits your spray gun choices, and generally, good mini spray guns with low airflow are not cheap. Another drawback of a small compressor is that it will need to run continuously while spraying. This can introduce more moisture in your airline. So, considering all these factors, unless you have very limited space, I don't recommend you to get a very small compressor. There's one more thing you need to be careful about. Some trade compressors may not give you the correct CFM rating. The same can happen on some cheap guns. So it's important to check the power first. In my experience, every 1000 watts typically provides around 3 to 4.5 CFM. A good compressor may provide slightly more, but not much. If you come across a 2000 watt compressor claiming 20 CFM, don't believe it. Normally, when we talk about CFM, we are referring to airflow at 90 psi. Some brands may label their compressor with a higher CFM at lower pressure. This is why the number seems inflated. To ensure you can achieve consistent spraying results and maintain proper pressure, it's best to test the compressor with your spray gun. In next part video, I will show you how to do that. Well, next to compressor, let's talk about air hose. First, we need at least 2 hoses. One of them needs to be a long hose, like 30 to 50 feet. Why? Because we need a long hose to cool down the air. The compressor air is very hot, especially when the compressor keeps running. The air contains moisture. We need a long hose to cool down the vapor to liquid water. Otherwise, it will go through your airline and you spray it with paints. That can cause some troubles. But it's not the longer the better, cause the longer hose will get more pressure drop. Especially you are using a small compressor. Definitely you don't want to lose too much pressure by hose. And for the first time setup, I highly recommend you to get some clear hoses. The benefit of clear hoses is we can monitor how much moisture or contaminants in our air line. In next part video, I will show you that in real world. When we are buying air hoses, we need to try the max pressure rate first. Make sure the max pressure of your air hose is higher than the max pressure of your compressor. For example, if the max pressure of your compressor is 0.8 MPa, then you need to get a 1.0 air hose. You will also notice that there are different material types for our hoses, such as polyurethane, PVC, rubber, type polymer, TPU, and hybrid hoses. Honestly, any of these can work for our purpose, and you don't need to worry too much about the material. We are using the hoses in our booth, not in extreme environments, so material choice is not critical. Generally speaking, hybrid and type polymer hoses are more popular because they are soft, flexible, and have better resistance to solvents. If your budget allows, you can get one of these to connect to your spray gun. For the longer cooling down hose that connects to your compressor, you can use a more affordable polyurethane or PVC hose. And for diameter, I recommend you to use 3/8. It's a common choice. If your hose is not big enough for spray gun requirement, it will lower the performance. Some of full-size guns, especially H3LP guns, need a lot of air to perform well. Also, some trip guns need a higher pressure to optimize properly. That means they also need a lot of air. And actually, the price difference between 1/4 and 3/8 is not very big. So why not just get an enough size one? Otherwise, you may regret someday when you want to try a high airflow gun. After air hose, let's talk about regulators and filters. The regulator is used to control and adjust the pressure of compressed air, while filters are designed to remove contaminants. You can find them individually, or you can get a combined system called FR. To maintain consistent pressure, you will need at least one regulator in your airline. You can opt for a trip regulator, as it won't affect your work. Just make sure two things. First, check the pressure range of the regulator. You will want a range of 0 to 0.8 or 0 to 1 MPa at a minimum. Most regulators have a range of 0 to 1.25 MPa, but some may have a much smaller range, such as 0 to 0.2 or 0.4 MPa, which may not be sufficient for our work. The second thing to track is the max inlet pressure. You should install the regulator between the compressor and the filters, so the max inlet pressure must be higher than the max pressure of your compressor. Most regulators have a max inlet pressure of 1 MPa, which works fine for 0.8 MPa compressor. But if you use a higher pressure one, such as rated at 135 psi or 200 psi, which means about 1.2 MPa or 1.35 MPa, you will need to choose the regulator that can handle that pressure. As for airflow of regulator, you don't need to worry too much, because even a 1/4 inch bore regulator can handle around 20 CFM, which is more than enough for painting. Just avoid using a very small and fine bore regulator. Then filters. I believe these are the most important part of the airline system. Without proper filtration, no matter how good your spray gun is, you will end up with poor results and many problems. Before investing in an expensive gun, make sure you have a good filter system in place. Then never spend $100 on spray gun, then use a $25 filter. I highly recommend you to use some multiple filters. Currently, I use a 4-stage filter system in my airline, ranging from 40 microns down to the 0.01 microns. It might be a little bit overkill, but I want the cleanest air possible. When choosing filters, you also need to consider airflow. The airflow rating of a filter doesn't refer to how much air it can pass through, but rather how much air it can filter effectively. The finer the filter element, the lower the airflow may be. So be sure to check the specifications before you buy. And you can see something like this on market. It's called FR or FRL system. Essentially, there is no difference between this and individual regulators and filters. It's just a pre-assembled unit. It could be single regulator with one filter, or a unit with 2-stage or 3-stage filters. However, be careful not to waste your money on FRL units. The L stands for lubricator, which is completely unnecessary for painting. Now let's talk about spray gun regulator. This is similar to the regulator in your airline, but it's specifically designed for spray guns. It ensures you have an accurate inlet pressure for your gun. The main consideration here is price. In my opinion, cheap regulator works just fine, so you don't spend a lot on a spray gun regulator initially. As long as it's a well-sealed one, it's good enough for our work. Yeah, cheap regulators have some drawbacks, like lacking solvent resistance, but I don't think it's a problem. And if you find the marking becomes hard to read, you can simply replace it with a new one for about $3 or $8. Okay, you can see the next part in our list is spray gun, and I guess you are interested in it, but I don't want to talk about it today. I will do an individual video for spray guns, otherwise this video will be way too long. So let's continue by looking at some other optional accessories. The first thing is quick connectors or quick couplers. They are very common in our airline system, but you don't necessarily need to use them, or at least you shouldn't overuse them. That's why I call it optional. A very common mistake that beginners make is they use a lot of quick couplers. Quick couplers do provide convenience for faster operation, but they can cause a pressure loss. Generally speaking, each normal quick coupler may eat 1 or 2 psi. If you use a lot, you may not have enough pressure at the inlet of your spray guns. The only place you need a quick coupler is on the hose that connected to your spray guns, cause normally we use 2 or 3 guns for our work. We don't want to excess work in our painting process. But on the other places, I highly recommend you to just use direct connecting coupler. Another optional device is an air cooler or air dryer. As the name is used to cool down the air, helping remove all moisture away completely from your airline. It's a useful tool, but I don't think it's very necessary. Unless you are in a very hot summer day, the humidity is very high in your spray booth. Just like I said before, it's not a guitar factory where you are spraying guitars continuously. We don't need a compressor running non-stop. When the compressor isn't running, the air in the tank cools down on its own. I don't recommend you to buy this one at the very first. You can set up the whole system and test it to see if you really need it. Plumbing is another method to cool down the air. Metal pipes have better heat dissipation, but just as I mentioned earlier, you may not need it, or you can decide after testing. The last one optional device is an additional air tank. If you have already got a compressor, but it's not powerful enough for your work, and you don't want to replace it, you can consider bought an additional tank. It gives you more air storage to provide the consistent pressure longer. And you can see here is the sequence of our airline system. Then in next video, I will show you my airline system and how to set it up in real world, also how to test it and how to adjust it. If you have any questions, please comment or just message me. Thank you for watching. If you think this video is helpful, please give me a like, and you can subscribe if you want more information and knowledge about guitar painting. Here's Kale. See you in next video. Bye bye.